Oh.
It's the Dev Friday Show with Mark and Tim.
Well, it is the Dev Friday Show. It's with Mark and Tim. And starting, what are we starting? 4 minutes late today? What is up with that? I mean, here's what I think everybody's concerned about and worried about and wanting an update on is, were you able to get Secure Boot to play well with Linux? Or is that it for you? Is 2022 not the year of Linux on Mark's desktop?
I'm done with Linux, Tim. I'm done with it. No, I found the best of both worlds. I'm in a happy place. Even though to start off the show, I had a few technical issues because I'm still dealing with my changes setup. Because I did have to reformat my computer a couple times after last week's show, so I was still dealing with
reformat your computer.
Yeah, so it's kind of I was trying some different configurations with Linux and Windows, like we've been talking about, and trying to get a good dual boot configuration. And through all my testing, I don't know. I where I landed was with the WSL and running Ubuntu on Windows 11, and seems to be working pretty well. I was able to do a few things to speed up some of my Linux applications, specifically do Emacs. Because I need that as fast as possible.
So you're not running Linux. You're running Linux on Windows.
I'm running the Linux subsystem, the Windows subsystem for Linux, running Ubuntu on Windows 11. Yes. And I was skeptical about doing this.
I'm not sure that I can count that as Linux on the desktop.
Well, hey, when the really cool thing that WSL or Microsoft is doing with WSL is with the version 2, you could run GUI applications within Windows.
Right. You said that looked pretty good, except for the fact that the UI is a little clunky, right?
And I found a solution around that because I was able to get my Doom Emacs running perfectly and smoothly within. It's basically I have like an Ubuntu window on my Windows desktop, which is kind of like, and it works pretty good now.
Is it like its own desktop though?
No, it's an application right on within Windows.
So it's just running. So it's running on your desktop, but the applications draw right onto the Windows.
Yeah, it's super good. Now the slowness happened after doing a little bit of research and kind of poking around and seeing that I guess the GTK version, like the graphics library, version for GNOME, right? I believe that's GNOME, right? Or GTK?
GNOME Display Manager,
okay. So I guess version 2 WSL is not as compatible with. It'll still work, but it's a little bit slow. It's just, resizing Windows. It has some issues. But then GTK 3, it works really, really nice with. So as long as applications are compiled with that in mind. So what I had to do is just compile Emacs, I guess version 2.27 supports GTK 3. And once I did that, then it was totally fine.
All right. Well.
Yeah.
Good news then. So you're in a happy place. You're able to play your game. You're able to secure boot.
I am. Yes.
I still don't feel like you are experiencing full Linux, but
well, that's true. And you know me, I like to kind of.
And are you still running it on the Surface at least?
I blew it away.
What?
No, I did because one thing that I need to have is when I'm going from my desktop to my laptop, I like things to have a seamless kind of transition, right? So I want to kind of keep basically the exact same setup on both places, even though Pop! OS was running great on my laptop. And like I said, if I wasn't playing games on my desktop, would I just be comfortable, teaching some things? Would I be comfortable just blowing away Windows and just going full on Pop! OS? Yes, I think so. I was running for a week and it was great. And just using working projects that I just had to just work with Pop! OS on my desktop, it was a great experience. But I'm still relying on playing some games because of my esports team, and I still want to be able to do that with those students. And then also, like I said, teaching is still a little bit easier because I already have my setup with OBS and everything. My workflow done on Windows already. So
there you go.
I'm going to keep it for a few more months. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
For your students out the door.
Well, I threw away Adobe. I don't have Adobe installed on my computer.
No, it's all.
No, I'm trying to use
GIMP and all that stuff.
I'm trying.
Blender.
That's right.
Now, okay. So those applications, are you running the Windows version of those applications, or are you running?
Yes, I'm still doing that because it's still GIMP. Because I don't think unless I can get I did want to see if GIMP has a version on their development branch that supports GTK3. It probably would have the same solution with Emacs, where if I just compiled it to a compatible version, I was reading their developer lists, and they were saying that yes, in the next version, I believe that GIMP Officially GIMP 3, I believe, will be GDK 3, but then that's still in progress. They haven't got there yet. So
what other than Emacs, what Linux application are you running then?
no, just on Linux.
Yeah.
Well, I do all my development on that. So all of my like say my React, Gatsby, Node, like everything that I'm running, I'm developing on
You're
for my
running that
projects.
on the
Yes.
Ubuntu install on top of
Yes.
Windows.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Like basically my development workflow is on Linux within the subsystem on Windows, and it's been working great.
And
So
then for an IDE, you're just using Emacs. So
that's true. Well, why would I use anything else, Tim?
why would you? I mean, Emacs.
It's so,
let's just
so
be,
smooth and fast.
Let's be very clear. It's Emacs with the Vim bindings.
That's right. That's right. That's true.
Best of both. This is. I mean, you are just like a walking compromise, aren't you? It's Emacs with Vim. It's Linux on Windows. What's next? Are you going to be running this all on like an M1 chip or something? Kind of figure out how to shim that in there too.
You mean on the Mac? On those new fancy Macs
with the
M1 chip?
Boot Windows on a Mac.
No,
on a Mac, and then run Linux underneath the Windows subsystem. And I don't know. You want to live in all the worlds, don't you?
That would be tempting, but I don't know. It's like Mac's overpriced. I'm not, unless I have a business purpose to actually get another Mac in the future, then yeah, I'm probably not gonna do that. So,
well, do you still need a Mac to write any type of iOS application?
Well, that's true. If I want to, well, it depends. If I want to just do purely iOS development with React Native, you could just basically do your compiling on the cloud, and then have it push. Do your testing on the device.
Well, okay. So when you compile on the cloud, though, is that still compiled on somebody's Mac?
Somebody's, yeah, someplace or some type of some type of.
So
Mac
you still have to
server
compile it on a Apple device.
Correct. Yeah, you still need to do that if you wanted to have a compiled, version, a file you could, test or either push up to the App Store. You're going to need to do that. But with with Expo, and there's a few other cloud services that do that with iOS compiling online. If you wanted to, you could do just React Native, and as long as you have devices to test it on, to kind of push it to your devices for testing purposes, we could do that. I don't know, we'll see. But it is a better process if you do have a Mac and you're developing a Mac application, no matter if it's React or if you're using Swift and doing it natively. You should be having a Mac, because Apple still likes to keep the doors closed to the rest of the world when it comes to their development, and wants to make sure you're locked down on the Mac to develop applications for the phones or computer. So yeah, we'll see. But I don't have any plans for that right now. That's not on my project list, Tim. So
now, like, okay, so you're living in the state of compromise.
The state of compromise.
But now I just want to understand this. The other option would have been to compile a Linux bootloader with with like a signed cert or something that would still let the secure boot pass.
Correct.
And that would have worked, but the issue is every time the kernel's updated, you'd have to recompile that.
Yeah, and I feel like it's just one of the, it's kind of like when you're dealing with technical issues and you hit a wall and you feel like, and you ask yourself, is it really worth you personally pushing through that wall to get to the solution that you wanted to be? And I was like, I don't know. Like I mentioned to you, like, I'm not big on doing kind of to the metal kernel hacking and everything like that, even though the articles I read of people talking about the process, and it seemed kind of there was steps, as long as you follow the steps and did through the what they were asking for. I could see it working, but I was like, I don't know. It's just at that point that it kind of felt like a hassle to me. I was like, because I knew too with this the secure boot, the EFI secure boot, I could run this issue with other issues too, especially when it comes to other games. I don't know. I was just kind of like, I just didn't want to deal with it. So I'd rather, but then it was interesting too, because while I was kind of trying to figure that out, then I was playing with Windows 11 and also the WSL2 with playing with the Windows subsystem, which I used WSL1, and it was great for just running command line applications. And if you could just deal within the terminal with the command line, it was a totally great system and it ran fast. But then I saw when they Microsoft updated to the version 2, which I guess it's been a while. It's been like
it's been around for a while. Yeah,
I know. I just haven't really taken a look at it in a while. But then once I tested that out, and then once I started to figure out, okay, well, if I can just get the Linux applications set up the right way or compiled the right way, then it actually is a pretty seamless experience. So it's been pretty good. So. As long as my fingers can flow over the keys for Emacs with like butter, then that's all I care about. So
you butter your keyboard.
that's right.
All right. Well,
with nice Irish butter, the best
Good.
one, the best stuff.
good show then. We're 15 minutes in, but we had a 5-minute late start, so about a 10-minute show. We're late on content this week.
Yeah,
but,
I know. Well,
you've had, so since you're running Linux on Windows, do you have up your I forget what it was called, the calendar, like the whole reason why you're in this Emacs place is the personal information organizer.
The org agenda, yeah, the org
agenda.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I use it every day. It's changed my life, Tim.
It's changed your life, and you have it,
Yeah.
and you have like an app on your phone too that does the same thing. I think, right? Like,
and
right?
I primarily just use it. Yeah, what is it? Orgzily. I had Orgzly. It's a weird name.
You can't
never
say
pronounce it.
You can't get it right.
Orgzly. Orgzly, I believe that's what it's called. So if you go, it's only an Android app. It is really cool because it is open source. So if you wanted to take a look at the source code, you can and participate in that. But I primarily just use it to kind of keep track of my phone, and also it does have a really cool feature with notifications. So when I'm putting in a to-do item that is tracked to a specific day and also a time, it'll pop up an Android notification. So it has like a nice kind of integration with that. So yeah, absolutely. That I check every day.
But this is where you have your show notes or your list of potential topics,
That's
right?
correct. Yeah.
So what do we have? What do we have on for the show today, Mark? Because
I was thinking about
I'm fresh out of content.
Okay, well, I could talk about a couple of things, or at least ask you a couple of things, because usually how this goes, I'm thinking about things during the week, and I want to get your.
I did want to know: is your site did you any more work on the art department site, or is it now that
I was chipping away at that? Yeah, I was actually doing
no longer hacked.
Right, doing it right before. Oh man, that was. I think the WordPress gods or something.
I was honestly curious.
Came down on me hard because I was kind of poo-pooing WordPress like every week and like hating on it.
They just deleted it.
And then I had this one WordPress site, which is the art website that I just was just managing.
We're doing that on this show though.
A little bit here and there.
A little bit here and there, but like no more than anybody that else would do.
And then on Twitter, I'd complain every now and then.
Okay.
Every time I'm asked to make an update on it and go to say, okay, I had to go update the WordPress website.
Right,
then I come out of that. I just hate it. I just feels like a bad system.
I actually thought, is this your way of exiting school? You just delete the art department site and hope that they ask you to find another gig.
It's okay. It's like, well,
since you brought that up, we're trying to hire front end devs.
All right. Well, so I'm not ready yet, Tim. It's on my timeline.
We're looking for a senior front end developer if you wanna stop by.
I have, like I said, summertime, Tim. I have a plan. Right now I'm in study mode.
Well, now would be the time to interview though if you want to do it in the summer. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm just.
Oh, let's ask you a question.
I see.
That's a good question.
You're gonna interview in the summer
time?
because the summer is when you're good.
Well, that's correct. No pressure. And also,
okay, gotcha.
Okay. My plan is.
It's not that you need. It's not that you need a gig in the summer.
I should probably kind of keep this talks down about my job search.
You did.
Not on this podcast, and you keep drawing me back into this.
You did mention that.
But I do have a plan. Where and I have talked to my colleagues at school because I've been on. Because I'm honest. When you're tenure, you can actually be honest about what your intentions are.
But up until that tenure point,
I have some desire to see what other options are. Getting back into development and working professionally in that scope. But I'm also willing to come back and teach for, another year and stuff like that. So I kind of, like I said, I'm not kind of being definitive about it, but also I feel it'd be beneficial for me to start the process now. And then let's say if something doesn't work out in the summer, well, we can always teach for another year and then I'll be better prepared for when I search again. So that's my whole plan. So my big plan between now, let's say May, is I'm doing some studying, reading some books, brushing up some algorithms, which is stuff that I haven't done. Also, we talked about one of my New Year resolutions, learning C++.
Right. How's that going?
I'm using a site called Educative. Have you ever used that site before? Have you seen that?
Not at all. No.
It's a really, really cool. It's geared towards technical kind of educational courses, but it's all text based, which I found is really interesting. In fact, I do a lot of video.
Educative. Learn something new every day.
Yes. Educative. Educative.io, I believe.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's I found it because of watching one of the YouTube developers that I follow, and he was promoting it. So his ad kind of worked for me because I was like, all right, checked it out, and it was pretty cool because their system's about giving you kind of brief course, well, trying to make it as brief as possible with regarding the information, just giving you the key information you need to know to try to be productive with the whatever the language, or if you're learning to set up a system, whatever the bare minimum amount of information you need to know, and give that to you as quickly as possible. And their focus is not even do any videos, which is kind of interesting. Where I've done a ton of based on working in the especially the past couple of years, we've transitioned to doing a lot of like online learning and done a ton of videos. But for me as myself, I actually don't like learning through videos. It feels like it's too slow for me.
No, I don't either. Like, I'd rather read.
Yeah, so that's what the site is focused
on,
and the writing is really good. It's not because you read a book too. I like I like reading technical books and kind of going through, but it also can feel a little bit too tedious, take too much time because of a lot of fluff that's in there, to try to explain things. And the way that it explains concepts and walks you through things, it does in a very, very quick and brief way. So I like it. And also has a nice, cool system with like simple quizzes and also kind of projects, or you can kind of simple projects you can do like inline within the site. So have like a code editor built in, so you can kind of test out the concepts that they're teaching you. So I'm kind of reviewing and learning C++ with that. So that's kind of cool because that's one of my goals. I want to make sure I get brushed up back on C++, and then just also do a little bit more Python, which I've been out of for the past year and a half. So I want to get back to that a little bit too. So kind of using that site to brush up on those things has been good. So between now and May, I want to do a little bit of also working on some projects, which, the art website, even though I didn't expect it to go down and get hacked, and I had to quickly throw up the new version of it, but I always intended to, like we talked about, I wanted to make that sort of Instagram style, portfolio style site for them. And that's also one thing I want to have accomplished by, let's say, May, because also I think that'd be a good portfolio piece for me to kind of talk about the process and see like how we can have like this multi-user portfolio style site for the department, for the faculty and the students. So I am working on that. And then that'll lead back into my site build project, which because I'm basically building the exact same way. So I'll be able to copy and paste like we talked about before. When I implement something in one project, be able to move it on to another one. So so that's what I've been doing. So, but you
I'm looking at this Educative site though. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
I like the inline code.
Mm-hmm.
I find it interesting that I can just echo the current working directory and find out that they're working in / user code. I might want to try some other things there, since they're obviously letting you just run whatever you want to run. So that's interesting. It looks like at some point I'm going to hit a place where courses aren't free. Is that?
Well, that does give you like a 7-day trial, but that's the one downside about the site, where it's not cheap. Because
isn't it? Because I'm looking through the PHP stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that looks like I can do, but then halfway through the course, things start getting locked.
So once if you want to do per month, it's kind of pricey. It's $60 per month.
Wow.
Now, but if you want a reasonable per month price, then you have to pay up front for a full year at like $16, $17. So it's not cheap.
Well, okay, so $60 a month seems high, but that's a huge discount to go for a year.
Yes. So that's what I've done, which I feel like if I'm going to be using this because I feel like, I'll be using it all through the summer because I have a list of things and list of courses I want to kind of go through it. So I feel at least for the next 6 months, I'll definitely be using it. And then we'll see how much I'll do after that. But I think it's a pretty good value kind of within that time, especially if you're going to put time into the educational product, just like you would if you buy like a book or something. That book's going to cost you between like $30 to $60 or whatever, whatever the price is. But if you feel like you're going to like read through it all or get value out of it, then I don't think the cost is that too much. But it definitely is not a free product or cheap product. So it is something that you do have to commit to. And if you're going to pay money for it, you want to make sure you get your value out of it too. So,
and you're doing the C++ for programmers, is that?
Yep, that's the first one I'm doing. And then, like I said, I think I'm going to do the full C++ track. Yeah, they have a full path, which basically is like 3 or 4 courses. So I'm just doing kind of the introductory one now, just kind of brushing up on some things, and then kind of go on to like the more advanced topics with that. So, because what I was thinking about doing with what I want to build, we talked about the site build with doing the web crawler that would be able to crawl websites and then to analyze the design, the layout of those websites, and be able to eventually do some learning on that, so I can kind of determine what type of layouts or work well on certain types of sites. So think about making this a web crawler in C++. What do you think about that?
I don't know. Why would you use C++? I
just because.
I would
Just gives me an excuse to do it.
Just okay, and that's fine. I mean, what do I think about that? It seems like a decent thing
because
to,
I could do well. But what I'm trying to
learn
also do too. The other reason why I learning C++ is because that's why if I want to do something in Unreal and write like in Unreal or Godot, like any game engine, we're learning C++ is a must, right? And being proficient in that is good. But I'm trying to stay focused on my small set of projects, especially around the site build web applications that I'm working on. So I'm thinking, how can I integrate C++ into that? I'm thinking, okay, server side, web crawler, and then try to write it in C++ and see how that goes.
Yeah, I've written web crawlers in PHP. So like if I was to write one, that's probably where I would go, just because I'm familiar with the language, right? If it was like, oh no, pick something other than PHP to write a web crawler in, I would probably go to Go, honestly, because Go is that
probably
kind of
true.
portable language with a
it's
portable
designed
system,
more for that,
right? Yeah. But it has first-class network libraries, which I'm not sure that C++ does.
Yeah, the one thing I want to do, because when to analyze the layouts, I'm gonna have to do basically like a per pixel kind of a.
You're not. Oh, okay. So from your perspective, you're going to be analyzing a render of it, not the DOM
That's
itself.
Correct. So I'm probably going to be I'm basically want to get a screenshot of it. My idea is like I basically want it because I just want to analyze the positive negative space out of it. So like basically where there is content.
Oh, because it's better. Okay. So from your perspective, it's better to machine learn against the representation than the DOM.
So my idea about it would also be thinking it'd be a cool kind of interesting kind of user search too. Let's say if you typed in a URL, and then you could basically be able to search that website and then get basically like a set of tiles or thumbnails of just basically wireframes, and just basically kind of box wireframes that kind of shows just the general layout of the page. Because you show you, okay, but this is like where your header, your navigation, the content area, maybe a sidebar, kind of divide it, and then maybe within like your main content, you could determine how many columns are within that, and just show you just a very kind of simple boxed wireframe view of that, just to get an idea of the layout of the page. Because I think from a learning standpoint, that's what I want to get to. Or I could say, okay, if I want to take that wireframe then and make it into a functional web page. So say, okay, this website or these sets of websites use this style of layout that works really, really well. And then if I want to give that ability for a user to implement that layout, I basically need a wireframe version of it that I could then be able to translate into HTML and CSS.
Right. Right. So for you, it is far better to see the render, because that allows you to be reductive.
Because I also think too, evaluating the DOM too, and also with CSS, I think that would also be it could definitely be possible.
You could learn from those things.
True.
What you want to learn is learn from how it's rendered.
True.
And then find similar things that are so it's a shortcut, right?
Yeah.
Just get a render of it.
I also think from a visual standpoint, just an interesting kind of experiment to do, kind of just saying, okay, can I like see just a wire? If I want a website, I want to just rip out all the content, all the text, all the images. I just want to see just a rough wireframe view, just so I can kind of see the structure of the page and just to visualize that. I think that just to see like a series of thumbnails of different websites and see the layouts they use, I think would actually be kind of an interesting exercise to go through.
And is that what you would end up doing with C++?
Yeah. No, that's because I think doing the analysis from it, if I want to get down to, say, if I have an image, then do analysis of each kind of analyze each pixel and do comparison of ranges of areas within that image is basically gonna be a screenshot of the website that I want to get to. Then I think that would probably work pretty well. But like I said, I haven't taken a look at any of the libraries. But like you mentioned with Go, we're doing writing like a web crawler or some type of network style application. They do already have the libraries it's made for that. So I'm assuming C++ and their libraries, or if they could use a third party library, that could also be an option too. So
you're thinking you're going to crawl, collect images, and analyze the images.
Yeah, first up is I want to do just have basically a simple search, which basically, have a web page, simple search, type in a URL, and there's basically just to do a crawl of that. Just start with that one website that you're
get all the different pages, so you can collect images of how their content is. Are you going to look at the content itself to try to say, okay, so it's visually represented in these, in this layout with this type of, the content is grouped this way. But then are you also going to look at it and say, oh, this content is informative, or in terms of maybe it's telling about, I think, from the company, text.
Because I don't know if I want to back up or dump the images like when you crawl the site, but I think the text, because that would be cheap to, in a sense, to store that. I want to take, from a cost perspective. But then I think that would also be interesting too, because you could do some queries on top of the text that you kind of pull and grab from there too. So that would be kind of interesting.
Because you could say they use this structure of a layout to present what seems to be profiles of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or they use this layout to what seems to be profiles of projects, or what seems to be frequently asked questions, or it seems to be marketing copy. You could categorize the content.
And that's where I want to get to. Like, I want to be able to have like a system that learns, say, okay, this style website with this style of content, and eventually with this style of text too, what layout, what design works best for that from a usability standpoint, for the, so that if somebody wants to adopt, let's say they have a similar site, like a similar marketing site or whatever, e-commerce site, and they want to use a layout that works well for that, or to even just use it as a starting point, which that's what templates are used for now. Like if you go to Shopify or go to Squarespace or go to any of these, they'll have their preset templates that you can use as a starting point. But I think it would actually be more powerful to say, okay, you could start off with a template, but it's based off of these style websites, or you can even list the websites. And then as a user, you can say, oh yeah, that kind of gives me a good starting point, because people are already used to using that style of layout flow by using an e-commerce site, and then they could kind of use that as a a foundation for it.
Gotcha. So C++,
I don't know. Like I said, I'm not sure on this
Educative.
And I think, like I said, I think there's something, like I've always talked about. I don't know exactly what the end result is going to be. Where so let's say the end application, but I do think that in the future with machine learning and intelligence, I do think designing pages would become more automated. We just won't have to rely on templates or making templates. I think the templates can be derived automatically by what's existed already, and also combinations of what's existed already, and also changes that people want to make on top of that. That's also additional information you can put within the system to help improve kind of the design system and help it learn better. So I think that could be interesting.
Looking too, it looks like they have assessments too, that you can kind of gauge what you know about things already.
You mean before you take the course to kind of do a judge? Yeah, I'm playing with that yet.
No, this is more. Well, I guess this is going to get personalized course recommendations from this, but it looked like one was even the AP computer science exam for high schoolers. It kind of give you an idea where you would rank there. Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting site. I do like the read and do instead of watch a video.
So much faster. Yeah. A lot of these educational sites, which I've taken a look at, and usually like they'll have like the free version will be like sounding sort of like their text interface, and then they'll have like, the premium version will be the videos. And I did try videos, I did try another site called Algo Expert. That's another one that I tried last year just to kind of take a look at, and just did like the trial for like a month or so, and it was okay. It was actually, the questions were real good, and the algorithm tests they were doing on there. But when they explained the algorithm and how to solve it, it was all done through video. So it would take me so much time just to watch the video and grok that, where I was like, I feel like I'm just spending too much time doing this. But now if I have like a quick extra 10 minutes, I know I could probably go through like a module of this, C++ course and be able to kind of get through it. And then, it also seemed I retained more too by kind of reading, following through it, and then also applying in one of their quizzes or their exercise that they have there. So I think it works pretty well.
It looks like you can create your own course too.
Yeah, which I just saw that last night too when I was taking a look at it, where I wonder if you could create your own course, and then if you do a good job of it, they could roll it into their curriculum and then you get paid for it, which I haven't taken a look at that, but I wonder if that's something that's how they kind of build out their courses.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious as to what this would be, because it looks like I can create a course, or I can create a shot, which I guess is just a new, like a smaller piece of information.
Smaller snippet, yeah.
That looks really interesting. So
yeah,
that's what you've been up to, trying to learn more.
Between now, like I said, I have about my plan is between now and let's say the beginning of May. Then my plan of May is I want to start talking to people that I have friends who work at companies that I might be interested in either applying for, or they could just be used as a reference and get their feedback on. So I'm going to start talking to people about saying, oh yeah, I'm seriously starting to think about applying to different places. What's your suggestions and feedback on that? So I'm spend May kind of planning that out, which ones I'm going to apply to. But you bring up a good point where, like, if you're looking to get hired, let's say in the summertime, you should start doing it now, which I do know the more lead time you can give it, the better. But then what's kind of your kind of time when you think about, let's say, putting out a a job posting or thinking about hiring somebody, then what's your kind of time frame where you hope to get that person in?
So how long from saying we want to hire to we actually hiring?
Yeah, because you just said, like, if you're going to want to look for the summer now, you probably should be putting out the application.
Like if you're looking for a gig in the summer, yes.
Yeah.
You should probably start doing that now because, I mean, well, from the perspective of looking to get hired, right? You're probably going to do more than one interview, right? You're probably going to talk to a couple different companies. So you'll have to field a little bit of that. From a hiring perspective, like if we have interviews, maybe it's a couple interviews, so maybe that's over a week or two of talking to different people at a company, and then finalizing whatever the contract is, getting it set up for when you're going to start. That's probably another 2-3 weeks down the road. So you're talking about, from your time from first interview to start date, at least a month.
Yeah,
would be my gut.
That probably makes sense.
Then, and that's for a company when you found the right candidate, right? You're talking about probably at least a month from when you start engaging with them to hire. My gut says if you're looking for a new gig, you're talking about more than that. But from your perspective, if you're starting to look in the summer, then you would, it's not like you're looking for another gig in the summer.
No, that's correct. And like I said, with I was talking to my wife about this because she's also a professor, but her plan is to retire. Like she's up for early retirement in a year or so. So that's kind of her plan, and then become a professional writer for the rest of her life. But just thinking about with academia, it is interesting how when I was working professionally before academia, switching jobs is not that big of a deal. You could always, if you have like an inkling and saying, oh, I kind of want to see what's out there, maybe we'll start putting my resume on those job searches and start seeing if I get any responses from recruiters, and start talking to people and just see what opportunities are there. You can kind of do it and kind of build it into wherever you're at, unless you're not kind of dead in, or really super busy in a project and you can't leave middle of the project, so that wouldn't be good. But at least you have some more flexibility. But academia, though, you kind of have a short window. If you do want to make that transition, you kind of have like a short kind of few months, 2 to 3 months to probably make that transition. If not, then I don't want to be starting a semester and then leave it. That's not good. So I'm not gonna be doing that. So we'll see.
I'm still clicking through here. It looks like you can not only you create your own course, but you can say what it costs.
Oh, you can charge for it.
That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. So
I haven't seen that. Like I said, I've mostly been just doing the courses they're recommending for, like, if I type in C++ and seeing their past or their courses for that, I've just been kind of following along with that. So I haven't kind of dug into any of the other kind of courses that they offer there. But it's a really, really clean, easy system. Like I said, the only downside of it is it does cost, but if I think their market is for professionals. So it's for either professionals doing, like what I'm thinking about doing is maybe doing like a job change, and they know they need to brush up on some new or some, skills or technologies that they need to learn about. And it's really meant for people who have a little bit of money to be able to pay for it. But for students who are just starting off, it may be a little bit tough.
I always find it interesting too, as I look at this and I look at their course offerings, because I can see that we got paths. I'm trying to get to all courses. Someplace that I was there where I could get to all courses, but it's under Explore. And now they're also selling for you can have team subscriptions, right?
Yep.
So the idea is you get your team to come on here.
Yep.
And I'm seeing, all right, we got C#, we got Go. We've got some stuff on Mongo, React, and all that. Which and if you look at their paths, Java, scalability, front end developer makes sense. I'm trying to see all paths. You had the C++, machine learning, and what I find very interesting is all the way at the bottom. If I could find it now, where was it? There was one that was like, hey, web development with PHP, and it doesn't even have a description. It says to be added, and it's like, do you know the market size of PHP developers? Like, there's a huge market there.
So are they?
PHP still runs 78, I think is percent of the internet, and you're basically saying, I guess we want the money from everybody else, but not the PHP developers. Because if you're telling me, is there a language where it would help to have some established courses and curriculum on how to use it better, how to leverage it better, how to work better in the framework of that language? Those would all be great for PHP. There's a big market opportunity there, but we've got all this stuff about, what do we got? We got tons of, I mean, there's like 15 different JavaScript framework courses, which makes sense because I think there were just 15 that were created today. And then we've got Java. Like I said, you have found the C++ stuff, and there's some Python. Lots of JavaScript. I'm just thinking, like, really? I think there's a market. I mean, if you look at the PHP ecosystem too, there are plenty of people making money selling courses.
That's true.
And or selling subscriptions to their video series. So I just don't get it. It's like the industry has decided they don't like PHP, so they're going to pretend it doesn't exist. And the problem is, it does. You can't just make it go away because you don't want to deal with it. It exists. There's plenty of developers out there. We're writing code every day, probably running some of the stuff your stuff runs on.
Wow.
And yeah.
Well, I didn't even need to make a PHP joke for you to go on that whole tangent there.
You didn't.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good.
Didn't need to at all. Did not need to at all. But since you've brought it up, now.
and I won't layer on by making some jokes on top of that. But
No, you can make the jokes. I don't care. I don't care.
Well, I think this site is born out of based on kind of the developers who were talking about or promoting on YouTube and kind of talking about, you know, and like I said, I don't know too much background about the company, but I think this is kind of derived of a lot of the platforms. Like I said, Algo Expert is another one. Have you seen like Leak Code? That's like
Leak Code sounds familiar.
That's it's more of it's like an online kind of community for doing like interview style questions for programming questions. But then they have their own kind of I think they have their own kind of courses, or on top of that, like they had their premium feature where you could kind of pay extra for that. So I think there's this whole ecosystem around kind of interview prep that I think Educative is kind of born out of. And the languages you're talking about are probably for the companies who are asking technical programming style, like algorithm type questions, like Netflix, Facebook, Google, Amazon, you know, the FANG companies. I think their primary market is for people who are probably looking to get into those style of companies.
And I will say there are a couple PHP courses. There's a hands-on PHP MySQL build a CRUD application. There's PHP for the web, and some of the names on this are authors that I'm familiar with. I've read other posts and blogs by them. So that's good. It just seems to me that a lot of times these tools ignore a large ecosystem that they could engage with and honestly profit from. So,
well, from the programmers you see coming in, since you're a PHP shop and you're a PHP expert yourself, where do you find that they have learned PHP? Like, where do you think that they've gotten? Are they mostly all just self-taught, or do you think that they've learned PHP? Or they talk about how they either took a course or learned in college, or they just learned on the job or on personal projects?
Yeah, I'm actually puzzled at that, because that is not a question that I think I've ever asked in an interview situation. I don't think I've ever said, like, where did you learn about it?
Well, I was thinking about after you hire them, or after you get to know them a little bit better because of working with other PHP developers. Like, where's your sense that most people probably pick it up?
My sense is most people pick it up because they start doing it,
just out of necessity.
Yeah, or they wanted to learn how to code, or they want to put up a web page, and this is the easy way to get to get that up, do it. They were working for a company and they got kind of tossed into it. They were a developer and got hired at a company that was doing PHP. That tends to be, I think, where mostly or they're doing contract development, and you're doing contract development. Guess what you're going to run into?
Or maybe they start with a WordPress site and they're like, oh, these themes and these plugins, these are built with PHP. What is this? And then they discover a world outside of WordPress, which that's great.
Maybe, which is good for WordPress developers to discover a world outside of WordPress. What I don't think many people are doing is learning it in college. That's for sure.
Well, it's interesting. I talk about that, how like I'm not happy with the way they teach server-side scripting class, and that's the reason why I left teaching computer science class. That's also kind of led me to the point where I'm at now. We're like, oh my gosh, like because I was enjoying teaching computer science courses because it was kind of filling that outlet for me of like, okay, I just want to just focus on just a development course and just stay in the code and not really deal with the design as much. It was kind of a nice break from teaching the design courses, but then I got just frustrated with the fact of how they were teaching the students. And when they get to my courses, like the mobile development or advanced web technologies, where I want to do either, iOS development or do work with, APIs, or work with a, Get, or working on like a cloud service, like Firebase or Google Cloud or Heroku, getting expecting the students to have enough information to go into what I want to teach them. They weren't there yet. I was still having to do like just basic introductory, computer science 101, even pre 101, like what is a variable, what is conditional, what is like a control, control statement, and
because they're not getting
that. Yeah. Or they're not retaining it, or like,
right,
I don't know. And I know, and I was once a computer science student myself. So I totally know when you're in a college fresh out of high school, it is tough, especially learning these, unless you're really, really super self-motivated to really pretty much do that all the time. And then but kids are pulled in so many different directions. I totally understand. It is difficult. It is tough. But I was kind of like, but once I learned what they were teaching in those courses too, like how they're teaching PHP in the server-side scripting course, or making decisions like I talked about, like when I wanted to teach the object-oriented course, I was totally expected to be in C++, and I was going to prep for it with C++. I was looking forward to that. Like, oh no, we want to do it in Python. I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. Even though they were going to teach Python in object-oriented course before the students even learned Python at all. And it was like, just decisions like that just drove me crazy about the department. And I just had to just kind of step away.
Why? Was there ever a reason as to why?
Because they got feedback from their kind of, because each department has, let's say, industry consultants that kind of talk about, what would be good for our students? Because, we're being a community college, 2-year college,
right,
a lot of our students do get jobs. That's the whole intent of either get jobs and then some transfer off to a 4-year school. But then they wanted to give a course, like a Python course, to students because they wanted to get experience having, which I do feel is valuable. Yes, absolutely. That's why I suggested, why not use in Python for server side? Like, just do that. And they were like, no, we want to keep it as P. I'm like, okay, I can understand that, but object oriented is kind of just to throw them into that. And like I said, it was difficult. Like we really didn't.
That's the other thing
cover so much, because it was really just covering the basics of Python.
About all that puzzles me so much too. It's like, so you're going to teach them PHP as server side, and then for object oriented, you're going to, you could do C++, you could do Java, Python, you could do PHP.
Yeah,
like it's why not pick?
Well, they want to go
stick with it for the.
They also want to. They want to go more. They want to go more enterprisey, just to say.
Well, that's fine. Then start with Java and stick with Java.
Yeah. Well, they're more on the .NET C# side.
Then start with .NET and stick with .NET. But why are they teaching different?
True.
Come on.
I know. Yeah. I know. I get
You're
you.
taking
Totally
people who are
agree.
not developers, and you're like, oh, the way to teach you how to be a developer is to change the language on you every time you take a different course here.
And that's something I think as when you're teaching, or let's say when you're old, learning a new language is not that big of a deal, right? It just takes time, but you're not stressed about it. Like if you had
learning the syntax, yes, but like to become good.
Well, but it just takes time, right?
Yeah.
You feel like, okay, it takes time. You can kind of budget that and think about how long you really need to spend, or how many projects you need to kind of work on to really get yourself to a certain place. But when you're young, but that's also built because of you spent time earlier on really becoming proficient at one, maybe two languages, and then learning a third or fourth language is not that big of a deal. And I do find, it's difficult when you throw these students into these programs, and they're thrown with like 3 or 4 languages, and they have to learn. I've had students too, when I was teaching mobile development course, they told me they were learning JavaScript, they were learning Java, and my course, which was at the time, I think I was teaching with Swift. And so they were learning 3 different languages. That's also why I stopped teaching Swift, because it was like, okay, I'm not going to throw these students into a completely different language. And I went back to JavaScript for the mobile development course. So it was like, at least that's a language they're learning in other courses, because to throw them into so many languages at once, they just feel scattered and they have nothing to build on. They build on top, because learning new language, I think, like once you get older, it's, instructors, professors, it's easy for them in a sense that they're like, oh yeah, why can't we, I can learn a new language fast. So why can't students kind of transition, kind of pick that up? But yeah, it's completely different.
See, now this is the content that those that are listening to this podcast from your from work should be interested in.
No, that's
not
true.
The fact that Mark is looking for another job, which he
everybody knows I'm not happy with the computer science department, because like I said, I started off, that's what I was hired to do, was kind of help manage the web development program. That's
okay. So let me throw this one out too. Because if the things that are impacting some of the decisions that are made are that we're bringing in outside I want to say consultants, but like we're bringing in people from industry and saying, oh, well, what do you want in the people you want to hire? How about you pause that for a second and you bring in people that are successful developers and say, what did you learn? Because let's be honest, from the perspective of your customer, which is the student, which is better for them to get the skill set that someone who might hire them says they should probably have, or to duplicate the skill set of those that are successful in the industry that you're trying to train them for. So why like whatever that I don't know what you call it, but body of knowledge that is trying to inform how you want to educate the developers of tomorrow, it shouldn't be the people that are saying, well, this is the type of person we want to hire. Who cares? It should be the people that are saying, I am a developer that is hired. How about we train them now in what those people know? Anyway.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's why, like I said, I got frustrated. And I was trying to fight against it too, but we had a, administrative change between our departments. Because when I first got hired, the web development program was actually a hybrid program between the art department, which that's my department that I teach in, and then the computer science department, or the business technology. And so it's always, because pretty much the web development program is kind of split between the two. And that's the way Josh, we always have to mention his name.
Josh, well, we don't as much as we should, but
I think he does listen.
He'll ever listen.
I think he does listen occasionally. So maybe
he listened more when it was on Facebook Live. And
maybe if we, what we should do is, when after we post a show, we should create the clips of just when you mentioned Josh Miller.
Oh, just Josh Miller.
Just draw him and just add him so we can draw him in a little more. So
yeah, okay. So then it just means we need to mention it every like 5 minutes too.
When he before he left to Kutztown, he created the web development program. Kind of was a similar kind of mindset that I was like, he wanted to teach computer science students. He wanted to teach those style of courses, and to also bring computer science students into our program a little bit more too. So I think his intentions and what he did was totally great. But then what happened was that then the school went through a structural change by taking departments, putting them into schools, and just reorganizing things. And the computer science department, once that happened, they said, oh no, the web development program, that should be within computer science. And for me, I was thinking, okay, I'm not going to fight that, because actually in my mind, that kind of makes sense. I was like, all right, even though we share some art courses in there, yes, it makes sense. Let it be in the computer science department. But what happened after that, though, I kind of lost a lot of control. Like when I would try to give feedback and try to like make recommendations, it was kind of, it was a little bit more of hitting a wall. So that
art guy just trying to tell us how to program again.
Or if I try to push my way into other courses to teach or whatever like that, I got pushed.
Go back to Photoshop.
Exactly. So yeah. So there I'm at. So how do we get there? Oh, because the Educative.
We've got this week.
Well, because it's interesting. Well, it's interesting with the Educative site, which as I've been working on it this week and learning C++, I'm also thinking myself, like, why does anybody need to go to college?
Well, let's be honest. I don't think you're the only developer to have that realization.
If you're willing to pay for just some good tools, like good educational tools, that really costs like $200 a year or something like that. It's so much cheaper. And as long as I think it's a nice thing too.
Wait, are you saying it's cheaper to pay them $200 a year than it is to go to college?
I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is.
You've got that idea, huh?
Yeah. The one thing too, and a lot of these sites too are starting to provide good communities. That's why like LeetCode is sort of a social, it's a competitive, programming site, but it's, I'm not sure about the social elements of Educative yet. Like, I'm not sure if you can connect with other students and get feedback on your,
I don't see, it's not, it doesn't look like it's top.
Because that is the one thing the college
feature
is really good at. If you can get lucky and go to a college that you have either you meet new friends, or you just meet kind of a good kind of circle of people that you can get feedback on your work and kind of help you through working through problems, or or kind of go to courses with, I think that is a really, really good experience, especially when you're young. And also opportunities for mentorship too, because I help out a lot of students too. And like they come to me, they ask questions about career and, how should if I want to start applying, how should I, work this? Or
and Mark's like, I'm doing the exact same thing right now myself. So.
No, I don't say that. But yeah, I think that there is a lot of benefit to it. Now, from a financial standpoint, does it make sense for those things that I'm talking about that are added benefits of going to college? Could you get those in other ways? Maybe we're not there yet, but I think we're in the future, probably will be. I think because the social aspect too, it's still hard to, especially for somebody who's young, to really try to, get that experience that's when they're not, meeting with somebody, or if they could just be, we don't talk about remember the whole co-working rage back in the day?
Oh yeah. Back when co-working was, I think it probably still is place.
Could there be like a co-learning? There you go. Co-learning. where like they could just go to a place and just just to be
Well,
with
that's
other
the thing.
people who are in the same place they're at, just by taking online courses and be able to talk about what they're learning.
And
Work
we've
through it.
talked about this before, but like the makeup of the Lehigh Valley area doesn't exactly lend itself well to the need for co-working the same place
Yeah.
it does in higher or more densely populated
Yeah.
areas. But if
Yeah.
you're in a more densely populated area, then a co-working space that caters to, say, technology and programmers and developers, that may be the place to go, and then use sites like Educative to learn and be around a community of people that are building stuff.
Mhm.
That's not a bad, you know,
Yeah.
alternative path to
Could be like
traditional education.
it could be we learn instead of we work.
Yeah, because WeWork ended well. Are they still around? Are they? I don't
I
even
think
know.
they are, because I don't know. I don't know full story, but it's interesting. I've been watching. There's a Hulu documentary about them, which I
Yeah.
watched last week. It was really fascinating, and also seeing a lot of these stories too, like with Theranos too. Like many
Yeah.
documentaries
Yeah.
about that, and then you have a
Yeah.
new Hulu show about that, and kind of so I've been and I'm always kind of drawn into these style like fictional documentary shows or just purely documentaries about big businesses or fake it till you make it entrepreneurs
Right.
and how
Right.
they go. And so it's just a crazy kind of world, but yeah.
Yeah, I was in WeWork once. We had offices down there when I was doing the DevRel stuff. We had an office at a WeWork. It was different. Didn't we weren't there too long until we got an actual office.
Wait,
And
which
then-
was that? Was it the current company you're at now, or is it different?
No,
company?
no. When I was working for Nexmo now Vonage,
Okay.
there was a WeWork office before we actually just got
Where
an
was it
office
at?
in the Bay Area in San Francisco.
Oh, so when you traveled up to San Francisco, that's where you
Yep,
would kind of
yep.
be your home base. Okay.
Yep. And I think I was at that office a couple times, like I said, before we got an actual office, which is right across the street, I think, from the new LinkedIn office. They're not there anymore, I don't think, but that was where that office was once upon a time. But well, we got 10 minutes left, and one thing I wanted to revisit from last week was we had wrapped up the episode last week talking about test-driven development. And
Yeah, I've been thinking about that too.
have you really? So
Well, no, but because I'm on.
Mark's like,
no,
not really. No,
No,
I
I
haven't.
am no, because as I'm learning, because I'm saying I'm reading through or I'm going
Right,
through
right.
the C++. I'm thinking, okay, actually, when I get to the point of like saying when I want to start to writing my classes or methods and doing those C++, doing some exercise, or when I get to my project, doing it with a TDD first approach and kind of just force myself, just saying, okay, I know like I'm kind of dragging my feet in it, but I just gotta like we talked about, you just kind of feel like you just have to kind of take that leap and just do it and force yourself to do it for a little bit. Because what is that? There's something about like learning something or forming a habit, like you have to do it a certain period of time in order for it to become natural. So I think that's my thing with TDD. I just need to force myself to just do it and kind of say, okay, let me just do it for a certain period of time. Let's say week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it takes. And then just kind of get over that hump. Cause I do feel like we talk about thinking about a job search and thinking about what I would do. I think if I can kind of build that into my workflows a little bit better than rather just think about it as an afterthought, I think that would be good. So what were you going to say?
Well, from a TDD perspective, I'm going to say something that well, we'll do it this way. What is the value that most of the time when we talk about tests and having tests for your code base, what is the value that they provide?
That's for the value for just finding bugs, finding in your own code. I guess, are you talking about tests for like you'd be writing yourself, you'd be trying to implement a new feature, you're writing the test first to
Well,
test
I'm not talking about TDD. I'm just saying tests in general, and people are
tests
like,
in general. Okay.
like we want to have our code base have test coverage. What is usually, or like what's the initial top of mind value behind saying, well, why do we want to have our code under test coverage?
So it doesn't break by users.
So does it
break within the process of any
right? So
wherever it goes.
So users don't find our bugs.
Yeah.
So and the idea on that is a lot of times is we will change something and a test will reveal that we broke something else. Is I think kind of the thought process. We have these tests in place, so as we refactor code, we don't have to, we can be sure that it didn't break something. Now, end-to-end tests can be useful for that. Like, hey, the button's still on the page. Cool, the button's still on the page. Unit tests can be good for that, because if I'm changing one dependency that something else uses in a way that it changes behavior, oh, I broke another unit test. because that test now
Yeah,
says I
yeah.
had this expected output, no longer got it, something broke. It's like, oh,
Which
that's
what
right.
that's what I've done in the past.
You know,
Using
it
that for that,
ripples
yeah.
down, and oh, I changed the way this little piece of code operates, and it impacted other code that use it. Therefore, I have to make sure that, well, it's either compatible, or maybe I need to change the way those other code uses it to use it in a way that has the expected output, or maybe I'm saying I am actually changing behavior, so I want to also change tests. I'm going to say something that maybe, I don't know, maybe it's an unpopular opinion. Maybe people
Controversial?
disagree with me. Let's go with controversial. Could be controversial. I think the times that happens is actually smaller than we would like to think it happens, where our test coverage stops us from breaking something. I would assert that it does certainly happen. And when it happens, it is important and it's a good catch. But it doesn't happen as often as we would like to think it happens, especially when compared with how much effort goes into writing tests. Which is an interesting argument for someone like me to be making, because I'm almost saying, is it worth writing tests?
Because because you've been saying the upfront cost. Is the upfront cost worth it? For that? Yeah.
Right. Because a lot of times, you know, if I'm building different unit tests, it's like, well, okay, so it did break, but I knew it was going to break anyway. The test didn't really catch it. I understood that changing, you know, this code in one place is going to ripple down, and it's not like I ran the unit test and go, oh, I didn't even realize that. No, I totally knew that was going to break, and I have to go change that too. Now, it can give me confidence that I did what I intended to do, and that's kind of where I want to go with this. To me, from a unit test perspective, the biggest value is in actually building the code. It's not the add-on value as it lives, and my code lives under test coverage, so I know if something breaks, you know, some other change has broken a different unit test. It's actually the value it provides while I'm writing the code itself. Because it's the thing that tells me I wrote it correctly.
Yeah, because you're working back. You're starting not with the solution, but you're starting with the result, and then
You're starting with the context that says, well, if this works, then you must have done it successfully.
Yeah.
I'm basically starting with some type of acceptance criteria that's in the code that I can use to validate that I actually wrote my code in such a way that it complies, it fits that acceptance criteria. So I would say that by writing tests after you write the code, you're actually missing out on the majority of the value tests can give you, because instead you're going through this process where you're like writing the code, you're kind of testing it in a weird way, you're manually testing it, right? And then you're throwing away that manual test, and then you're going back, if you work in an environment like we do where we expect you to have tests, you're going back and then you're writing a test to cover it, to satisfy the code standard that you have to have a test, and you're frustrated because now that's the thing that takes time. And you're like, I know it works. Well, why do you know it works? You know it works because you tested it manually. So you spent all this time testing it manually instead of just writing an automated test that would have told you it works. So you spent the effort in doing something the automated test would have done for you, but you threw that away, and then you had to come back and write another automated test. So you're really bypassing a lot of the value the tests give you. The only value then you get is the long-standing value of if something else changes and breaks this code inadvertently, we catch it. And that's a good thing to have. But I'm saying the majority of the value you get from writing tests is at the time that you're creating the code.
Because you find the solution faster. It's a more kind of direct approach to it.
Right.
By starting with the result and kind of working back away from there.
But when we talk about the value of tests, a lot of times we talk about the value of test in terms of, well, it helps your code not break as you're making changes, or other things are making changes, or there's refactoring. That's the value of tests, is you can refactor with confidence. What I'm asserting is that's a little bit of the value. The main value you get from tests is that you can write code with confidence to begin with, and when we don't and we write the tests after the fact, we miss out on a lot of that value.
It's true. I think too with testing, which I think has been my issue about bringing myself to the point of actually being able to kind of implement it within my daily workflows when I'm working on projects. It's going to come from a UI perspective.
Right.
So from a UI perspective, even though there are testing with JavaScript, there are testing frameworks that make that a lot easier. But back in the day, that didn't exist.
Yeah.
So basically, just testing was basically just doing a refresh or just using the console log or the console and the developer tools of the browser. And that's basically all you had. So kind of getting myself out of that mindset, I think that's been a
But now that you're going to C++,
yeah.
So now, and you're trying to do that TDD style, right? As you go through the C++ exercises and things like that.
Which that's kind of what, when you go through these courses, you basically are starting to say, you need to get to this result. It's basically showing you a test, right? And
right.
You kind of need to work your way back from there. So,
and that's what I'm saying.
Similar, yeah.
We are doing test-driven development. Just a lot of the times we're throwing away the tests, or we ourselves are the tests, or we have a manual test case that says, go to this page, hit a button, and expect a result. It's like, why haven't you just automated that at that point? Because then you get the maximum value, and I think the majority of the value from any test to begin with. So,
well, not too bad, Tim. I think even though without very little prep, I think this show is automated itself.
Very little prep. we have zero. We have zero prep. But next week we can come back and we can see how well Mark's doing with C++.
Yeah,
whether he loves TDD. And how this Linux on Windows thing is really working out.
It's the dream, Tim. It's a dream. Living it.